Welcome to Legacy Black of Power. 10 R&B stars who became homeless. Imagine this. The same voices that once ruled the airwaves, packed sold-out arenas, and shaped the very heartbeat of R&B, now sleeping in cars, crashing on couches, or wandering the streets with nothing left but memories of the spotlight. These weren't just singers. They were legends, the architect of sound that defined generations. But behind the fame, the gold record, and the flashing lights lay a darker truth, one of loss, struggle, and heartbreaking downfall. From David Ruffin to Lauryn Hill, their stories remind us that fame doesn't promise forever, and success doesn't always mean stability. This isn't just a lesson in music history. It's a wake-up call about the price of stardom. Stay tuned as Legacy of Black Power uncovers the shocking truth behind 10 R&B icons who lost everything. The question is, will their stories change the way you see them forever? David Ruffin. David Ruffin's name will forever echo through the golden halls of Motown. With that raw, soul-piercing voice, he turned songs like My Girl, Ain't Too Proud to Beg, and I Wish It Would Rain into eternal classics. As the electrifying frontman of the Temptations during their prime, Ruffin wasn't just singing. He was feeling every note. His journey from humble beginnings in rural Mississippi, born in 1941, to leading one of the world's most celebrated groups should have been a fairy tale. And for a time it was. But behind the fame and the flashing lights, a darker melody played. By the late 1960s, Ruffin's personal demons began to drown out his brilliance. The fame that once lifted him up now fueled dangerous habits. Drugs, ego clashes, and strained relationships within Motown soon took their toll. In 1968, at the height of his stardom, Ruffin was abruptly fired from the Temptations. Though he launched a solo career with gems like My Whole World Ended, The Moment You Left Me, the title proved hauntingly prophetic. His own world was unraveling. Through the 1970s and 80s, Ruffin's life spiraled further. Stories emerged of the former superstar drifting from place to place, sometimes without a stable home. Friends recalled moments when a man whose voice once filled packed arenas was now struggling just to find shelter. His homelessness came in painful cycles, each one tied to addiction, mismanagement, and the weight of fame turned burden. Yet even through the chaos, Ruffin never stopped singing. He would still take the stage, sometimes alongside Motown legends, sometimes alone. But the fire that once lit up the world dimmed with every passing year. In June 1991, tragedy struck. Ruffin died of a drug overdose in Philadelphia at just 50 years old, a heartbreaking fall from grace for one of soul's brightest lights. His funeral drew hundreds, fans and peers alike, mourning the man who gave them joy yet couldn't find peace himself. Today, when My Girl plays, people smile, dance, and sing along. But behind that sweetness lies a sorrowful truth. The voice that brought the world happiness belonged to a man who, in the end, had none. David Ruffin's story remains one of soul music's greatest contradictions, a legend blessed with heavenly gift, yet haunted by earthly pain. Sly Stone. Few names in American music carry the same mix of brilliance and heartbreak as Sly Stone. Born Sylvester Stewart in 1943, he didn't just make music, he reinvented it. With his groundbreaking band Sly and the Family Stone, he created an electrifying fusion of soul, funk, gospel, and psychedelic rock that broke every rule in the book. Their songs, Dance to the Music, Everyday People, Family Affair, became anthems of unity and revolution. And in an era divided by race and gender, Sly built a band that looked like the America he dreamed of. Black and white, men and women, all playing side by side. At the height of their fame, they were unstoppable, filling arenas, selling millions of records, and soundtracking the spirit of the civil rights movement. But behind the roaring crowds and a rainbow of sound, darkness crept in. By the late 1970s, Sly's drug use, cocaine and PCP, spiraled out of control. Missed shows, erratic behavior, and endless legal trouble began to erode the genius that once lit up the stage. His fortune evaporated, bandmates walked away, and lawsuits piled up. By the 1990s, the man who helped invent funk had all but disappeared. Reports emerged that Sly Stone, once a millionaire icon, was living in a white camper van on the streets of Los Angeles. Inside that small metal box, surrounded by a few clothes and a keyboard, He existed far from the spotlight he once commanded. The contrast was almost unbearable. The man who wrote Everyday People, now living as one of society's forgotten. He made rare comebacks, occasional performances, a few new songs, but the magic was fleeting. In 2011, headlines confirmed what fans feared. Sly Stone was homeless, surviving on Social Security checks and the kindness of friends. That same year, he sued his former manager and record company for decades of unpaid royalties. In 2015, a jury awarded him $5 million. But even that victory was tangled in disputes. Sly Stone's life remains a haunting reflection of fame's fragility, how genius can ignite the world but still burn out alone. He gave us music that made generations dance, dream, and believe in togetherness. Yet behind that rhythm of joy was a man battling silence, addiction, and loss. His brilliance will never fade, but neither will the image of funk's greatest architect, not in a mansion, but in a van, surrounded by memories of the music that once changed the world. Bobby Womack's life was the kind of story you couldn't make up, brilliant, chaotic, and heartbreakingly human. Born in Cleveland, Ohio in 1944, he grew up surrounded by music. From gospel roots with his brothers in the Valentinos to being discovered by the legendary Sam Cooke, Bobby's journey seemed destined for greatness. Under Cooke's mentorship, he blossomed into a gifted guitarist and songwriter, penning It's All Over Now, a song the Rolling Stones would turn into a global hit. As the years rolled on, Womack became one of soul music's most powerful voices. His songs, like Across 110th Street and If You Think You're Lonely Now, weren't just melodies. They were raw stories of struggle, love, and life in the city. But behind that genius was a man in turmoil. His shocking marriage to Sam Cooke's widow, Barbara Campbell, just months after Cooke's death, scandalized fans and cast a long shadow over his career. Then came the real battle. Addiction, cocaine, and chaos consumed him. By the 1980s, despite Grammy nominations and collaborations with icons like Aretha Franklin and Wilson Pickett, Bobby's world was collapsing. He lost nearly everything: money, fame, even a place to sleep. The man once wrapped in silk suits found himself drifting from couch to couch, haunted by the ghost of what he used to be. But somehow, the fire never fully went out. In the late 80s, his classic, If You Think You're Lonely Now, pulled him back into the spotlight. Years later, Quentin Tarantino's Jackie Brown revived his legacy with Across 110th Street. And when Damon Albarn of Gorillaz invited him to sing on Stylo, a new generation discovered the legend's voice. Still, his body carried the scars of every hard night. Diabetes, cancer, and early Alzheimer's followed him to the end. Yet in 2012, Womack released one last masterpiece, The Bravest Man in the Universe, a raw, soulful goodbye that proved he still had something to say. On June 27, 2014, Bobby Womack's story came to a close at the age of 70. He left behind more than songs. He left a legacy carved in pain, passion, and truth. His life was a reminder that genius often walks hand in hand with tragedy, and that even the brightest stars can fade, but their light never truly dies. Cuba Gooding Senior. Cuba Gooding Senior was a voice that defined an era, smooth, soulful, and unforgettable. Born in Harlem in 1944, he rose to fame in the 1970s as a magnetic frontman of the Main Ingredient, the group behind timeless R&B classics like Everybody Plays a Fool, 1972, and Just Don't Want to Be Lonely, 1974. With his velvety baritone and commanding stage presence, Gooding captured the elegance of soul music just as it was breaking into the mainstream. He wasn't just singing songs. He was giving voice to a generation's emotions. But as the decades rolled on, the bright lights of fame began to fade. The music scene changed. Disco took over, funk dominated, and the Main Ingredient's golden era quietly slipped into memory. Gooding kept performing, still chasing the magic that once filled packed theaters. Yet the industry is often cruel to its pioneers. Without steady hits or strong financial backing, even legends can struggle to survive. Behind the charming smile and signature suits, Cuba faced hardships few ever knew about. Personal battles, financial strain, and long nights without a stable home. Those close to him whisper about stretches of instability, with a man who once sang of heartbreak was now living for real. Still, he never stopped, whether performing with new lineups or smaller crowds. His passion for music never dimmed. His legacy lived on through his children, most famously, Cuba Gooding Senior, the Academy Award-winning actor who often credited his father as his greatest inspiration. But the elder Gooding's later years were marked by quiet struggles, a man balancing dignity and difficulty, still holding on to pride even when the world had moved on. Then tragedy struck. On April 20th, 2017, Cuba Gooding Senior was found unresponsive in his car in Woodland Hills, Los Angeles. He was just 72. The cause of death, an accidental drug overdose, stunned fans and friends alike. For many, it was hard to reconcile the loss of a man whose music had once filled their homes with warmth and love. Cuba Gooding Senior's story is both inspiring and heartbreaking, a soulful reminder that fame fades, but art endures. He sang of loneliness, love, and human fragility, and in the end, his life reflected every note of those songs. His voice may be gone, but his music still whispers through the years, reminding us that even the brightest stars can struggle when the spotlight goes dark. Chico DeBarge. Chico DeBarge's life reads like a soulful ballad filled with talent, tragedy, and endless attempts at redemption. Born Jonathan Arthur Chico DeBarge in Detroit in 1966. He came from the legendary DeBarge family, a dynasty that ruled R&B in the 1980s with smooth harmonies and unforgettable hits like Rhythm of the Night. But unlike his famous siblings, Chico wasn't content to live in anyone's shadow. With his 1986 debut single Talk to Me, he introduced a sound that was both silky and streetwise, a blend of vulnerability and edge that made him stand out. For a moment, it seemed he was destined to become the next great R&B star. But fame for Chico came with a heavy cost. Just as his career began to bloom, he was arrested in 1988 for drug trafficking and sentenced to 6 years in prison, a detour that would forever alter his destiny. Behind bars, Chico didn't give up. He wrote songs, reflected on his choices, and plotted a comeback. And when he finally returned in the mid-90s with Long Time No See, he did so with a renewed hunger. The album's standout single, Igamy, proved he still had the voice and the vision to make waves. For a brief moment, redemption felt possible. Yet, the grip of addiction never truly loosened. Through the late 90s and 2000s, Chico's life became a painful cycle of arrests, rehab stints, and relapses. His struggle with heroin often left him teetering between recovery and ruin. At times, he even spoke candidly about being homeless, sleeping wherever he could find shelter, weighed down by the very demons that had once inspired his most heartfelt lyrics. It was a heartbreaking fall for a man who once filled concert halls and topped the charts. Still, Chico never stopped creating. His later albums, Free, 2003, and Addiction, 2009, were raw, confessional, and brutally honest. Through his music, he turned his pain into poetry, his regrets into rhythm. Fans saw not just a fallen star, but a survivor, flawed human, and unafraid to bare his soul. But even as the years passed, his troubles didn't fade. Arrests in the 2010s and 2020s, including a 2020 incident involving drug possession and false impersonation, showed that his inner war was far from over. Chico DeBarge's story is not simply one of downfall. It's a reflection of resilience and the unrelenting struggle between brilliance and brokenness. His homelessness wasn't a permanent state, but a recurring reminder of how easily life can unravel when addiction takes hold. Unlike his siblings, whose fame endured longer, Chico's light flickered, bright, beautiful, but always fragile. And yet, even in his darkest moments, his voice never lost its soul. It carried the pain, the passion, and the truth of a man still fighting to find peace. In the end, Chico's tragedy lies not in lost fame, but in the haunting truth that raw talent alone can't silence inner demons. His life stands as both a cautionary tale and a testament to the power of survival through song. Billy Preston's story is one of dazzling brilliance and heartbreaking downfall. Born in Houston in 1946 and raised in Los Angeles, he was a musical prodigy whose fingers spoke the language of heaven. By the age of 10, he was already performing with gospel greats like Michel'le and just 6 years later, he was touring the world alongside Little Richard. His boundless energy and electrifying command of the keyboard made him a legend in the making. Then came the moment that sealed his place in history. The Beatles nicknamed him the Fifth Beatle. Preston's soulful playing on their 1969 hit Get Back was so powerful that he became the only musician ever credited on a Beatles single alongside the band. From there, his genius knew no boundaries. He played with the Rolling Stones, Aretha Franklin, Eric Clapton, Ray Charles, you name it. And when he wasn't backing icons, he was becoming one himself with hits like Nothing from Nothing and Will It Go Round in Circles. But behind the joyful smile and wild stage presence, Billy's personal life was unraveling. The fame, the fortune, the access, they came with a price. Cocaine and alcohol crept in, stealing his peace and draining his wealth. By the 1980s, the man who once shared stages with legends was often sleeping on couches, adrift between homes, relying on the kindness of friends just to get by. The 1990s brought even darker storms. Legal troubles, from insurance fraud to assault charges, further stained his once golden reputation. The crowds that had once adored him faded away, leaving behind a lonely figure, battling illness, addiction, and isolation. High blood pressure and kidney disease ravaged his body, but not his spirit. Even in decline, Billy Preston never abandoned music. He kept recording, collaborating, and pouring his soul into every note. He worked with Eric Clapton and even appeared on the Red Hot Chili Peppers Stadium Arcadium sessions, proving that true artistry never dies. In 2006, at just 59, Billy Preston passed away after falling into a coma from complications of malignant hypertension and kidney failure. He left behind more than just records. He left a legacy. The legacy of a man who played like no other, smiled through pain, and showed the world both the glory and the cost of genius. Homelessness may have been one of his darkest chapters, but his music remains a timeless reminder that light can still shine through the storm. Lauryn Hill. Lauryn Hill's rise in the 1990s wasn't just success. It was a cultural awakening. Born in 1975 in South Orange, New Jersey, she burst onto the scene as a member of the Fugees, the groundbreaking hip-hop trio that redefined conscious music. Their 1996 masterpiece, The Score, didn't just sell over 17 million copies. It reshaped the sound and era and catapulted Hill into global stardom. 2 years later, she stood alone and unstoppable with The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, an album that blended soul, reggae, and hip-hop into a spiritual experience. It earned her 5 Grammys, including Album of the Year, and positioned her as one of music's most powerful and poetic voices. Hill sang of love, faith, and self-worth with raw honesty. Her art felt less like entertainment and more like revelation. But the same industry that crowned her soon became her battlefield. Overwhelmed by fame, expectation, and exploitation, Lauryn retreated from the spotlight. She chose privacy and motherhood over public life, raising 6 children away from the noise. Yet, her withdrawal came at a heavy cost, financially and emotionally. By the 2010s, the whispers of financial trouble turned into headlines. Years of limited touring and recording left her struggling, and the IRS came knocking. Hill had failed to pay taxes on more than $1.5 million earned between 2005 and 2007. In 2013, she pled guilty to tax evasion and served 3 months in prison. Court filings revealed mounting debts, unpaid taxes, overdue mortgages, and the looming threat of eviction. For a woman who once stood at the peak of fame, the possibility of losing her home was a heartbreaking fall from grace. Was it poor financial management, or the crushing weight of fame and exploitation that broke her? Hill herself has spoken openly about the cost of success, describing how the industry drained her spirit and stripped artists of their humanity. She said walking away wasn't failure, it was survival. Despite everything, Lauryn Hill never lost her voice. Her 20th anniversary tour for The Miseducation reignited her legacy, reminding fans of her brilliance, even as critics noted her lateness and unpredictability. Through triumph and turmoil, she remains a symbol of resilience, a reminder that authenticity often comes at a steep price. Lauryn Hill's story is both tragic and timeless, a tale of genius, rebellion, and endurance. From multi-million record sales to near financial ruin, She stands today not as a fallen star, but as living proof that true artistry can't be erased by circumstance. Terrell Carter. Terrell Carter's journey through the entertainment world isn't just a story of talent. It's a story of survival. Born in Buffalo, New York in 1971, Carter grew up surrounded by the rhythms of gospel and the strength of faith. His voice, rich, soulful, commanding, would one day echo across some of the biggest stages in R&B and gospel music. But before the applause, before the bright lights, there was struggle. Carter's breakthrough came when Tyler Perry cast him in hit stage plays like Medea's Class Reunion and Meet the Browns. His mix of powerhouse vocals and raw emotional depth made audiences fall in love with him instantly. Soon, television came calling. Roles on shows like Empire proved that his talent went far beyond the stage. As a recording artist, he poured his truth into independent R&B albums, crafting songs that spoke of love, faith, and redemption. Yet behind that success was a man who had once been invisible, sleeping in libraries, public buildings, or anywhere he could find safety. In his early days, Carter faced homelessness head-on, often carrying all he owned in a single bag. Those who knew him in Buffalo and Atlanta remember his relentless spirit, how he sang, hustled, and prayed even when life gave him nothing in return. His journey wasn't about waiting for luck. It was about endurance, a man refusing to let circumstance bury his gift. When the world finally noticed him, Carter didn't just chase fame. He used his platform to fight for those who still lived the life he escaped. As a pastor, teacher, and activist, he became a voice for affordable housing and economic equality, causes that came from lived pain, not distant sympathy. His story carried weight because it was real. Through albums like Finally and The Story of Us, Carter's music became a testimony of perseverance and love. Fans didn't just hear his voice, they felt his journey. He wasn't pretending to be perfect. He was proof that broken beginnings can still lead to beautiful endings. From sleeping on the streets to commanding the stage, Terrell Carter stands as a reminder that hardship doesn't define you. It refines you. His life shows that even when the world turns its back, faith and persistence can turn despair into destiny. Michel'le burst onto the late 80s music scene with a voice that stopped people in their tracks, soft and childlike when she spoke, yet thunderously powerful when she sang. Born in 1970 in Los Angeles, she became one of the most distinctive female voices of West Coast R&B. Her 1989 debut album, Michel'le, released under Ruthless Records, went platinum thanks to unforgettable hits like No More Lies and Something in My Heart. She quickly earned her place as the first lady of hip-hop soul, working alongside industry heavyweights like Dr. Dre and Suge Knight. But behind the platinum plaques and glossy magazine covers was a life filled with pain. Michel'le endured years of physical and emotional abuse from both Dre and Knight, beatings that left her with black eyes, broken bones, and scars that ran far deeper than the surface. Beyond the violence came betrayal in business, unfair contracts, lost earnings, and the constant threat of instability. There were nights she had nowhere to go, relying on friends or temporary housing just to stay safe. Though she wasn't always homeless, she lived in the shadow of fear. A woman once at the top, now fighting to survive. In time, Michel'le turned her pain into purpose. She became a fearless voice for survivors of domestic abuse, openly connecting the dots between violence, financial control, and housing insecurity. Her story reached a new generation through the 2016 Lifetime biopic Surviving Compton. Dre, Suge and Michel'le, a raw portrayal that exposed the dark side of fame. Today, she continues to perform, her voice carrying both the heartbreak and the resilience of a woman who refused to stay silent. Michel'le's journey is more than a cautionary tale. It's a testament to survival, reminding us that even those who once topped the charts can find themselves fighting for a safe place to call home. Alexander O'Neal. Alexander O'Neal's voice didn't just define 1980s R&B, it commanded it. Born in 1953 in Natchez, Mississippi, and raised in Chicago, O'Neal carried the grit of the streets and the soul of the South in every note he sang. When he moved to Minneapolis, he found himself at the heart of a musical revolution. After a short time at the time, fate led him to the powerhouse duo Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. And together, they crafted a sound that would echo across the world. With albums like Hearsay, 1987, and All True Man, 1991, O'Neal delivered timeless hits, fake, criticized, and hauntingly smooth If You Were Here Tonight. His voice, equal parts velvet and fire, made him a star, especially in the UK, where fans saw him as one of soul music's true kings. But behind the spotlight, O'Neal was fighting battles far from glamorous. Growing up in poverty left scars that fame couldn't heal. Addiction, unstable finances, and the constant pressure of survival haunted him long after the applause faded. At times, he spoke openly about sleeping on relatives' couches or barely scraping by. Unlike many stars who hide behind facades, O'Neal's raw honesty set him apart. He never pretended that success erased struggle. It only made it more visible. Even through hardship, he never stopped performing. British audiences continued to embrace him, and he appeared on shows like Celebrity Big Brother, still carrying the same soulful fire that once filled arenas. Yet his story is a stark reminder of how fragile fame can be, how even platinum artists can find themselves one step away from the streets. Now in his 70s, Alexander O'Neal speaks of redemption, resilience, and truth. His journey stands as both inspiration and warning, a living testament to how thin the line is between stardom and survival. And as we look back on R&B legends who once ruled the stage but later faced homelessness, one truth cuts deep. Fame fades, but humanity remains. From David Ruffin's tortured brilliance to Lauryn Hill's battles with financial chaos, their stories reveal the price of passion and the cost of the dream. So, what do you think? Should the music industry do more to protect its legends, or are these downfalls an inevitable part of fame's cruel rhythm? Share your thoughts below, only on Legacy of Black Power.